Well, hey there. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to go ahead and work on the fuel system bow gas tank out of the 78 El Camino. We pulled it off the other day to look at how we're going to actually connect the external pump to the old original tank, and saw a few little issues with it. And instead of just swapping it all out and replacing it, which we could do, we're gonna go ahead and fix it. Kind of gonna be a DIY video today. So we're gonna fix a couple little small issues with this tank and get it ready to be used with the LS. So let's get to work. All right, so before we get too much in depth into the tank, let's talk about the pumps and filters. So this is the setup we're gonna go ahead and run with the El Camino for right now. This is actually a temporary setup, but it should be just fine. The only issue we're gonna run into is these are notorious for being kind of loud. We have one on the Mustang, and I use a lot of these in doing my engine stand startups because they're nice little external pumps. They run about 350 liters per hour, so they can support about 400 or 500 horsepower, which is not bad. Let's just say they're not the most reliable on the market. There's much better out there. These are like 30 bucks on Amazon and eBay, so you kind of get what you pay for, but they are kind of known for being noisy. However, these P-clamp rubber isolators are supposed to help with that quite a bit, so we're going to see how well that works. Now, we did notice that when we pulled out the 350, we noticed that there was a lot of rust in the little fuel filter that was on the side of the motor. So we wanted to clean this, but we also wanted to make sure in case we missed anything, we protect the pump and the injectors. So we went ahead and did is put a 100 micron pre-filter, and then we did I believe it's a 20 micron post filter. But this is to protect the pump from the rust. This is to protect the injectors from everything else that this one doesn't catch. So this should be fine on this setup. So that's kind of what we got going on here. Just kind of explain it out for you guys. What I went ahead and did is built a bracket to mount them to the bottom of the car. So we can actually pop this and mount it, either weld it or bolt it to the bottom of the El Camino, somewhere near the tank around the frame rails. And then instead of having to try to, put multiple mount areas on the car for the pumps and for the pump and the filters, boom, just put some nuts on there, mounted, bam. This should get us by until we decide to actually do a new tank, which we are planning on later on. So don't get me wrong. We are planning on replacing this with an in-tank pump. So right now we just want to get this project finished, get this thing learning and driving. That way he can enjoy it this year. And then we'll throw money into it next year with a new tank and an in-tank pump. But for now, this will work. So, all right. So let's talk about the tank issues. So first and foremost, it's dirty. But more important than that, we ran into one issue here, but check this out. So ignore the fact that the hat's moving, but see where the line goes into the tank? Yeah, it's not supposed to move like that. So what happens is when I took this off, I wonder if I can get it. Oop, can you kind of see it? Yep, you see that daylight through there? Yeah, you're not supposed to see that. So, yep. So it's supposed to be soldered or brazed together on the inside here. You can see it's all gone, absolutely destroyed. So one of the first things we're going to be doing is we're going to take this out, we're going to clean it up, and then we're going to go ahead and solder that back together. Some people go brazing, soldering, but we're going to be using solder on this one, which should just be fine. But we're going to go ahead and seal that back together because we don't want this leaking. Now, for the best part, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this on the camera. Let's see. Yep, see that? So there's gas in there. And then if you look below that gas, that is a sea of rust. It is bad. There's a lot of it. So what we're going to have to do, I think there's about 5 gallons of gas in here. We're going to clean all the gas out of it. went ahead and picked up the transfer pump. Good old Harbor Freight transfer pump. We're going to go ahead and put a fuel filter on this, and we're actually going to extract all the gas out of here through this, through a fuel filter, and then back into a gas container, because then I'm just going to run it my lawnmower and whatever else. I wouldn't dare put this crap in my cars, though. As you see, it's bad. But yeah, once we get that all out of there, we're going to actually go ahead and clean this out. So remember, we are working with gas here. This stuff's very flammable, you know, because you guys didn't already know that. Best way to deal with that is once we get this fully cleaned out, we're going to go ahead and put Dawn dish soap in and some hot water. The Dawn dish soap will actually break down the gas and it'll actually neutralize it. Then we're actually good to work on the tank. So once that's done, we're going to go ahead and clean this out. We're going to flip it upside down, try to get most of the rust to come up to here. And then we're going to clean all that out. I'm going to put a vacuum in there, suck out as much as I can. Clean it until I can keep dumping it out and it's running clear. No more soap, no more rust, just nice and clean. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and clean up all this rust. And this is all just surface rust because you can actually see where the straps were. This tank's actually pretty clean. So once this is done, we're going to go ahead and wire wheel this. And I am going to pressure test it, and we're going to look for leaks. If we find leaks, we will seal them. Hopefully it's not too bad, but this thing wasn't known for leaking. We didn't have any known leak issues when it was running on a full tank before. And even with this gap in here, this was so packed with dirt that it didn't even make it, it wasn't leaking gas out of the hat either. So not that that's a good thing, but you know, silver linings, we got to look for them. Once we go ahead and verify that this is just all surface rust and nothing's actually rotted and we don't have any holes in here, which it all looks pretty solid, it's not leaking gas from any other place, I'm gonna hit it with some rubberized undercoating. That's gonna help us protect from rock chips, you know, especially underneath the car, right behind the back tires. We don't want a bunch of rocks coming up, knocking it, and then ended up having, you know, rust issues again because it's untreated. That looks rough. I don't know. I think it'll be fine. It's not my car. Oof. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned out. All right, well, we're not quite to the bottom yet. And you see, we are past full, almost all the way up to the top. So it is actually getting a little harder to pump this as I go. So I can tell that it is pulling that rust sediment through and it is filling up that fill filter. Oh, look at that. Crap. Woo! Live action, guys. Apparently it was just gravity feeding into there. Ha ha ha. EPA, close your eyes. I'll take care of that. All right, so it took a little bit of doing, but ignore that. So we got it filled. Actually, that's the second time. So we actually went and grabbed another jug, and we got about 2.5 gallons out before we filled the other one. This is a 2-gallon jug. Filled it completely up, dumped it into somebody's car, and then went ahead and filled it up almost all the way again to another time. So roughly, what, about 8.5 gallons? And you can see, kind of hard to see. God, I wish I'd put bigger holes in these tanks. It is bone dry. And since gas does a pretty good job of evaporating on its own, anything that's left in there, as long as we keep this thing open, will go ahead and evaporate out of there. So, yeah, kind of hard to get a good view of that. I think it's mainly because the sun's right in my face over here. But, there we go. I think you guys can get a good idea of it. So, let's see. So, yeah, I mean, I just scraped that off with my nail. And let's see if we can see right where I scraped it. Yep. You see a nice scrape mark there? That's just sitting on the surface. So the tank is actually in good shape. That's just garbage and dirt and debris and nasty crap all over in there. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use the Dawn to kill the fumes in here, and we'll probably switch over to some of our super clean degreaser and clean the rest of this out. But we're gonna get in there as much as possible. I might throw a bag of marbles in there too. And it may sound like a joke, but you actually fill it up with soap and water and then marbles, and then you swish it around, and it knocks a lot of that and agitates a bunch of that dirt, debris, and rust and sediment, and knocks it off there. But I mean, the top of it's pretty good. But we're gonna go ahead and get the rest of this cleaned out. So far, it's looking pretty good. So. All right, so we got the tank emptied out. We did go ahead and flush it out with some soapy water, and if you, let's see if we can see in there. You see, still got a little bit of water in there, just a little teeny bits. So, Dawn dish soap and water, like I said, really knocks the fumes out. You can barely smell gas in here anymore. And just some residue. So if you look in the bottom, you can see all the rust is out. All we have, it's really hard to see this. Let's see if I can get a light on there. Alright, there we go. See, it's just kind of dingy down there. So, you see, I kind of scratched at it. Actually, where's that scratch mark I made in there with my nail? Yeah, that's close enough. So if you look right about there, that's where the fuel sending unit was actually kind of scratching the bottom of the tank. So it kind of cleaned it off a little bit. So everything that's on there right now is just practically kind of varnish and sediment. So it's just kind of stuck on there. So we need to clean that off. I mean, it's not going to be the biggest deal in the world if we don't get it. That stuff is baked on hard. We got all the floating sediment and rust out of there, so nothing's going to actually get picked up. But we kind of want to try to clean this up the best we can. Let's see if we can get this stuck all the way in there. Nope. That's the best I can do. All right, then. That's the best I can do. So, everything else looks relatively decent. A little bit of surface rust you can see on the baffles. But, all in all, not bad. We can totally run this. So what looked like it was going to be an overall easy, not easy, but not terribly hard job of just, cleaning this fuel tank up and getting it good enough to go back into service. It just keeps snowballing, okay? And it makes me really question my life decisions. So as we start cleaning it up, and you say, it did come a lot cleaner. It looks a lot nicer than it was originally looking. We grabbed the wire wheel on the angle grinder and just went to town on this thing. It's just a wire wheel, guys. I mean, it's not taking off any real material. It's just going to clean off the rust. However, taking off the rust can sometimes give you some surprises. So, look at those. Yeah, those are big old holes. Yep. Some more holes. Yeah. I'm assuming as we get more of this stuff off, we'll see more in there too. So, yeah, there's quite a bit of rust holes in this thing. I mean, every corner I get to, I'm just finding more. And then I start questioning, is it worth it? Is it really worth it? And I don't know. I can't answer that now. I mean, I think we can get a new tank for about $120. So at this point, I'd almost call it a wash. See, I might just continue just for personal gratification, just to seal the tank and just have it done. But it looks like I'll be chasing a lot of pinholes. And in the end, is it worth it? Well, if you guys like the content, then it's worth it. If you guys like watching this stuff, it's totally worth it. I'll keep doing it. Because then, it's not time wasted. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get this thing all cleaned up. And I'm just going to see how bad they are. Then I'm going to go get some solder and just kind of go to town and start trying to fill these holes. And see how many of them can we seal. Part of me wonders if JB Weld just be the easier way to go. What do you guys think? JB Weld or duct tape? Flex seal. Screw it, we're going to flex seal this tank. Yeah. So, as you guys saw, we're running into some issues with these holes. We don't want to put a whole lot of time and effort into this tank. A new one, I think we can get for like 130 bucks off Rock Auto. Not a huge deal. So, really kind of limiting how much work we want to put into this one. So, what we're going to do now is go ahead and pressure test this. And the pressure test, even though we haven't sealed anything yet, is more or less just to show us how bad this is and kind of like expose any other like major holes that we might not be seeing and just kind of give us an idea if it's worth putting any more time into this at all. I'm really thinking it's probably not going to be worth the time, but we can at least see. So what I went ahead and did is put some sealant on all the holes that we did find. Now this is just some silicone sealant, and this will not actually seal the tank from gasoline because the gasoline will eventually eat through this. This is just here to seal up the holes that we already found so that we can actually get a little bit of pressure in this thing and try to find holes that we haven't found. So we sealed up all the little spots that we found all the way around it. I'm not sure how well that's going to hold up, but that was where the fuel hat was kind of coming apart. A few of them here and there. So tried to tape that off the best I could. We'll see. Got the cap on, but they don't seal all that well. So we're expecting we're probably going to see some bubbles from there. Probably going to see some bubbles from here, but we already know that. So we're really kind of looking at finding bubbles elsewhere. So we have it hooked up to the air compressor. I have the regulator set at about, I think I got the regulator set. Change your brakes, bro. I have the regulator set at about 35 PSI. We don't need a whole lot. I'm not trying to blow out what we already sealed up. Plus we don't want to try to, actively try to blow the seams out of the tank. So 35 PSI is more than enough. We should be able to pressurize the tank with that. So we're just feeding the tank from this port here. We cap this one off. We'll see how well that's gonna work. I don't think that this is gonna seal off too well just because it's a tight seam and it really needs to be soldered. But we'll see. I mean, I'm expecting to see some bubbles around there and I'm gonna ignore those. So what we're gonna do is kind of pressurize it and hit it with some soapy water and just kind of look for bubbles. So. Oh, we got some there, but ignore that. Really kind of impressed that I'm not seeing a lot of air bubbles. I got some right around there, but we thought that was going to happen. We knew that was going to happen. Holy crap. Is it really going to be this easy? Nothing ever happens this easy. Come on now. Yeah, we got nothing. Oh, found one. So there was a previous missed one. So right there, you can kind of see it. And actually there's a small dent in the tank right there, so that might actually be responsible for that. But now we know we have a small pinhole there. So you can actually kind of see how well this works. So, got to keep hitting it with some soapy water. Process is pretty foolproof. It kind of works. Like, I'd say 50% of the time it works 90% of the time. Yeah. So we'll just keep hitting all the seams down here. And then we're just gonna do this around the whole tank. I mean, it costs nothing but a little bit of soapy water. Everybody has soap. Everybody has water, I hope. Well, some countries, but. And there's another one right there. See that? Easy peasy. So we know that once we start taking off that scale on there, we're gonna find one there. We know we have one right here. So honestly, that's all we're seeing. So it might be worth salvaging this tank. There's not a whole lot. So I think what we're gonna do is, now that we know, we haven't found them all, but we know that there's not a lot. I think there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 small pinholes, most of them right next to each other. So they do make the JB weld for this actually. So it may sound counterintuitive, JB weld, everybody's gonna make fun of it, but they actually do make a gas tank repair for JB weld. So it's supposed to hold up to gas and it's supposed to work really well from what I've seen. So it feels like I did a whole lot of work for a whole lot of nothing. So looking at like the totality of the condition of this tank, it's just, it doesn't make sense to try to repair it when a new one is so cheap. So I talked to my brother-in-law and let him know what's going on with this. He made the decision that he's just gonna go ahead and purchase a new tank because, and I totally agree with him on this, we go ahead and patch up the 10 or so pinholes we found and everything looks good, and then a couple months down the road, find another one, and then maybe another one, and maybe a few more after that. It's already a pain to pull these things down. I know it really kind of feels anticlimactic, but it is what it is. Kind of felt like scrapping this whole video just because, because there was really no net gain from it. We didn't fix the sending unit. We found one cheap enough that it wasn't worth replacing it. Didn't end up fixing the tank. Found one that was cheap enough. So, like I said, almost felt like scrapping this whole video, but I feel like we need to put these out there because not everything goes as planned. Not everything that we plan to do on these vehicles ends up being what we end up doing. We may look at it, we may make a decision to do something, and then we try to go through with it, and we find out that we hit a roadblock, and that's what happened. I mean, there's no point in putting work into this tank when we can just get a replacement so much cheaper. Kind of wanted to, go through and, say, hey, never cleaned rust out of a tank before. I want to do it. Let's go ahead and do it. Never patched holes in the tank before. Let's go ahead and do it. Well, the more we started wire wheeling this thing, the more problems it looked like it was going to have. So it just doesn't make sense to keep doing it when we can get one cheap enough and it's going to be better for the long run. Eventually we want to go to an in-tank pump, so we don't want to have to be trying to put that in a tank that's possibly compromised and it's not even worth putting extra work into it. So eventually we do want to go maybe Walbro in-tank pump, and it's just going to make more sense to replace the whole tank and do it right the first time instead of revisiting it later because it's going to fail. I mean, come on, look at it. I mean, some of those areas are so thinned out, it's gonna fail. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna move along with it. The whole video wasn't a loss. I did get to show you guys the filters and pump setup that we're gonna be running on there. So at least there was some gain out of this video. Hope you guys don't blame me too much for this video. Sorry I made you sit through it just to find out that we're not doing anything, but it is what it is. So hopefully next video we can start putting the fuel system on this car. Probably take about a week to get all the parts, and as soon as we get the parts and we are ready, we are gonna start throwing this thing together. We are super, super stoked to get this thing up and running and get it off of the stands it's on now and actually do a drive on it. I mean, I don't even care if we have power steering, we're gonna drive this thing. Don't need power steering to do a burnout, right? So thanks for watching. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks, guys.